What's up, everybody? Welcome to the first full episode of Mac and Merch. I'm Matt.
And I'm Merch. And today we're here to talk to you about the power of thought and how important that is for you on and off the court as an athlete and as a person.
You are what you think.
So much of, I think, what I've done in the past and where I'm trying to grow as a coach, and I think where our whole profession needs to start focusing on, is we spend 90% of our time on neck down coaching, right? Like, do I jump to the ball? Am I boxing out? What's my technique on my free throw? What's the play I should run? But we've kind of forgot about there's 10% that's neck up. And I think we need to flip that paradigm a little bit and think about more about how we can help you be the best you can be, but it comes from the power of thought.
Exactly, because if you think about it, like, if you have a nice car, right, and it has nice paint job, nice tires, nice interior, everything is good, but no engine, is the car going anywhere?
Not going anywhere. You got to have your mind right.
Yeah, and I learned in one of my sports psychology classes that our thoughts then affect our feelings, which then affect our behaviors. So we literally manifest the life that we're living, whether we're happy or we're sad, by just a simple thought.
Yeah, that's so true. I heard Simon Sinek speak, and he was talking about, and he really kind of dives into this space, and he was talking about how the mind really can't comprehend the negative, right? So if I look at you right now and I say, all right, K-Mac, don't think about that microphone. What's the first thing you do?
I hear microphone and think about it.
Hey, K-Mac, don't think about an elephant. What's the first thing you see in your mind?
Elephant.
And he was talking about how even like professional skiers, if you ever seen a skier and you see them slaloming down and they're not hitting any of the trees and it's a tight path, if you ask them, they don't go down that path saying, don't hit a tree, don't hit a tree, don't hit a tree. They say, find the path, find the path, find the path. And just how that changes and how they manifest what you're talking about into something positive so they can get down the hill in a positive way and win the race.
Yeah, and I think that's so important. And I come from a place of low socioeconomic status, and a lot of things I see is I'm like, some people out here, living with the bare minimum and so happy. And when I started learning those things about sports psychology, it's because they've convinced themselves that they're living the life that they want to live. Mm-hmm. And I think it's so important for us to take the time out to appreciate what we have and what we're working towards, because you're never going to be happy until you love what you have. You love the pace that your life is going at, and you love that you're facing adversity to then grow from it. And I think perspective is really the ultimate factor in determining whether you're enjoying yourself or you feel miserable.
Absolutely. I think there's so much to be said about the power of thought. When they tell you you have 70,000 thoughts in a day, I mean, I didn't know I had enough gray matter up here to even think 70,000 thoughts, but 90% of those 70,000 are the same every day. So what do you do with that 10%? Like how you talk about manifesting and how you change, because everything, what you tell yourself matters, right? And it affects your actions and your behaviors. And you do the same thing and tell yourself the same thing, you'll get the same results. So if you really want to change your circumstances, right? Kind of going back to what you said, where you came from, the power of the mind, right? It isn't about the stuff around us. It's what you think about yourself and how you love and how you share and how you connect with other people.
Definitely. I don't know if anyone in the audience has ever heard the song by J. Cole, Love Yours. It hits home for me because I watched him at a concert and he said, no such thing as a life that's better than yours. But how many people are striving to be like the influencers they watch or this or that? And it's like we all have our specialized journeys, and it's beauty in that. When I had my knee injury, it was a very severe injury, and I felt like I was so close to my dreams, and I felt like my life was falling apart. Mm-hmm. And if I would have kept going with that narrative, who knows where I would be? But I had to reframe and say, no great story has no adversity. So in order for my story to be great, in order for me to have an impact, I have to go through this. And that's what I want everyone to understand, that if you're going through something or you're facing a hard time, it's not because you're being punished, or it's a good thing. You know what I'm saying? But if we don't think about it as a good thing, we can drown in our sorrow and, have pity on ourselves, but it's really great. And it's like, wow, what point do you have to get to where you can think that adversity is great? But if you actually think about it from a logical standpoint, it is. I mean, like, who wants to watch a movie where there's no plot twist? Like, that would be so boring. And it's an
easy life, wouldn't it?
Right. It would be the same with life. How many movie tickets would you sell if your movie was just like sweet all the way across? So I think that's something we got to take in as a community and as student athletes. We live a great life, you know?
But one of the things too, I was reading an article that talked about how there's a study of cancer patients, and they put them in two different groups, right? And one group was getting an IV full of chemotherapy, and the other group was getting an IV full of saline solution, but they didn't know it.
Right.
And at the end of this, 6 weeks or 8 weeks, the second group that was only getting saline solution, because they thought they were getting chemo, 30% of them lost their hair. So if you think about that, like, you shouldn't lose your hair getting saline solution, but if you tell yourself you're going to lose your hair, and again, I mean, I'm not a doctor, I'm just saying, like, the power of the mind, how that affects your health, your well-being, your relationships, your family, your teams. It really does. It starts with one, right? And really reframing and thinking about, being conscious about your unconscious thoughts. I think that's kind of what we're talking about today. So there's so much stigma around mental health, and I think there's a difference. And I learned this today, as a matter of fact, at one of our sessions as head coaches and staff meeting. They talked about there's a difference between mental health and mental illness, right? And that you always have the right every single day to work on yourself, the mental health, right? I mean, you work on your jump shot every day.
Exactly.
We got to work on our mental health every day. And then if it gets into a point where you're really struggling with anxiety, depression, and it gets to an illness place, now you've put in some of the work that hopefully it doesn't get there. But if it does, you're aware, you embrace it, and you can reach out and get the help that you need. And I think a lot of student athletes deal with so much on their plate now. And I marvel at you, I marvel at the kids on our team, but I also know they struggle silently, right? And there's such a stigma with mental health. But mental health doesn't mean you have an illness. You just really need to focus on your ability to understand what you tell yourself and how much that impacts your ability.
It does. And coming from being a current student athlete, there's so many things we feel like we have to tough it out, but that doesn't make sense. You wouldn't just not work on your jump shot, like you said, because
it's a sign of weakness to say, hey, I need to talk to someone. Yeah.
So I think that's something that we should do better at, and something that we should encourage. And I commend you for doing that. And I think that we should go into every day wanting to do small things. Something I do, I wake up and I meditate. I'm a really big analyzer. So for 3 to 5 minutes, I just sit and think nothing to give my brain a break, so that I'm not thinking myself into and out of something, because I do tend to do that a lot. And also not harping on things that I may have made a mistake, or because that's what really shapes us, and our only way to grow is to make mistakes and mess up. If you want to learn more about how your thoughts and your energy control what you're doing in your day-to-day life, me and Coach highly suggest The Energy Bus by John Gordon. It's a great read, and it can really give you a lot of new perspective. Thank you for tuning in to Mac
and Merch. We'll see you next week.